Welcome to another installment of WikiTree's LiveCast this Saturday afternoon with your host, me, myself, and I, Mags Gosselin, along with our chat moderator, the divine Miss M. Macbeth. Hey, Em, how are you doing? Happy Canada Day. Bonne fête du Canada.
Happy Canada Day.
I've got my Canada bling on, my Canada shirt. Woohoo!
I couldn't find my Canada bling. I'm very sad.
Well, that's okay. You need a red do-rag.
I couldn't find it. Everything's lost.
Everything's lost. So today we're talking about WikiTree and all of WikiTree's. We're doing an overview of WikiTree's Canadian projects, which there are quite a few. So this isn't like a regular interview live cast. It's just a chat live cast. We've already got people in the chat room who are asking us some questions about some of our Canadian projects. And right off the bat, I just want to say thank you for being here and Bonne fête du Canada. So vive la Canada. We want Canada to be 150 years old today. So that's a pretty incredible feat for a young country. So if you wanted to find the Canada projects on WikiTree, you could go up to the top of any WikiTree page to the drop-down menus, go over to Find on those drop-down menus, then scroll down to Projects, and the definition there in the pop-up is groups of members who collaborate on topics. I'm going to right-click on that and open in a new screen, and here's the project list. These are all the projects on WikiTree. And we can click on the Canadian History Project, and that will bring up the listing of the Canada History Project, like basic overview information, with some of the projects listed that we're going to just cover really quickly today. Like I said, there are quite a few. Emma, you have a Canadian connection to Montreal. Are you participating in any of the Canadian projects?
The Quebecois.
The Quebecois, and why are you participating in that particular project?
Because I have an enormous branch of my tree that is all Quebecois.
So you are Quebecois.
I am Quebecois.
And what is a Quebecois?
A Quebecois is someone who's French Canadian and lived in the Quebec area.
In the Quebec area, so which is differentiated from the Acadians. We were talking about that just a few minutes ago. And I just pulled up the Quebecois project real quick. We'll get back to that. I'm involved in some of the Canadian projects as well because I live here. But the reason we're having this this chat today is that WikiTree, or not WikiTree, but Canada is 150 years old today. And a lot of people say, what? Canada's way older than 150. Yeah, Canada is way over 150, but the Articles of Confederation for Canada to become an independent nation, aside from Britain, wasn't signed until 1867. So this is the 150th birthday of this very young and very good nation of Canada. So we're glad you're here. We're glad you're enjoying your time with us. And we'll go back to the Canadian projects, and we'll actually go to the Canadian History Project so you can get a gander of that. And my computer's been doing funky things all morning. So if I mess up something, be patient. So here's the Canadian History Project, which is led by Aaron Breen. And I am one of an active leader as well. And the Canadian History Project is a top-level project that works to add and improve profiles relating to the Canadian History Project and to other sub-projects. And of course, project members take primary responsibility for relevant profiles or family groups and work on merging duplicates, cleaning up profiles, adding sources, removing incorrect information, and offer research assistance as needed. And of course, all the regular information here. There's a spiffy badge. And if you'd like to join, there's a G2G feed going on. And oh, gee, look, if you want to add your name to a project, ask me. I didn't realize that was up there. I was wondering why I was getting all those Canadian Project badge requests. Now I know why. Let's see, add Canadian history to your list of followed tags in G2G. And you could also add Canadian history to the list of followed tags on your profile page as well. And you can join the Google group. And there's a full list of participants, and the badge list is really long. Let's see how many participants there are real quick. And this is in the overall 75 members in the Canadian History Project, which I think is probably on the low end, but you never know. So, and the reason why we're celebrating Canada Day today is because today is actually Canada Day. So the Articles of Confederation were written and signed in 1867 on this day. And so there's a big party going on about 3 kilometers from my house up on Parliament Hill. Big party going on. The Prince is here along with his wife, so Prince Charles, and Camilla Parker Wales, or however she is called these days. They are here. They're downtown right now, and there's a big party going on with lots of stuff, lots of people, Canadian musicians and artists, just celebrating Canada all day today. There'll be another big party on the hill tonight, along with a huge fireworks display, which I can actually see from the back windows of my house, which is kind of fun. So big party today, big Canada Day, and that's why we're covering the Canadian History Project. We also have the best looking Prime Minister in the world. I'm just saying, I should find a picture of Justin to throw up a picture of Justin.
He and I are cousins because of the Quebecois.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can throw up a picture of Justin. Here he is. Oh, and this is today, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, there he is. There's our best looking Prime Minister in the world. So, yeah, we got it going on up here. He's smart. He's a very smart man. He was a school teacher. Of course he was smart. So there he is. Back to the Canadian History Project. So there are lots of sub-projects, and this list, and I was noticing this when I was doing the research for the project today, this list is not really complete. So there's Alberta, British Columbia, British Home Children, Empress of Ireland, Fille de Roi. Say it right, Emma?
Fille du Roi.
Fille du Roi. First Peoples Canada, Grosse Ile, Quebec, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Quebecois, the United Empire Loyalists. And if you go to the category for Canadian projects, you will also see some extra projects thrown in. The Chronicles of New France, Markham Birdsey's Settlers Project, Military Musicians. Is there, I mean, I've never known, do we have a Military Musicians Project in the U.S.? Glenn Miller would be one. Emma doesn't know, so she's not answering
about that. I'm like, what?
The Norman Gosselin Project. Joanne M. Reed. See, there's a profile thrown in there too, in the War of 1812. And of course, the Canadians, if you ask them, the Canadians will tell you that they won that war of 1812. And being a U.S. citizen, I just stay out of that conversation. So we're going to start off by just quickly going through the projects alphabetically and talking about the individual products. Here are the projects. Here is the Alberta Project. And the Alberta Project's pretty plain and simple. It's a project encompassing all the people who lived in the province from whenever until present day. And the project covers the province from 1905 to present day, as well as Alberta, Athabasca districts of Northwest Territories from 1882 to 1905. And for me, I would say that it would also encompass anyone who was there prior to that, because even if you were Indigenous to Canada or First Nations in Canada, you would have been a part of that geographic area as well. The coordinator for this project is Bob Jewett, and there are quite a few Alberta specific information categories. If you see premiers, performing artists, authors, notable people, mayors of Calgary and Edmonton, two of the biggest cities in Alberta. And then there's space pages as well for the premiers, the performing arts, the authors, notable people, and source links on Alberta history. Alberta is a western province, and its capital is Calgary. And the other half of my life is actually out in Alberta at a wedding right now in Edmonton. So there's an Alberta project, because there's projects for each one of the provinces. So British Columbia, this is a project that I'm the interim leader on currently. And lots of good ways of getting into that. So it's another provincial project. There's really not a lot to say about the provincial projects other than that there are projects. And if you have ancestors who lived in those geographic areas, you could certainly add them and add the project information and join the project and work on adding your people to that project. So other than to say that there is a British Columbia and Alberta, a Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, a Manitoba, Ontario, and a Quebec project, which is the Quebecois. Really not a lot of need to go into specifics on that unless you have a question. And I see that there's conversation going on, about the War of 1812. Canadians go to the White House and burn it. Americans never got into Canada. Oh my goodness. See that it's all starting over again.
We're done.
Well, which is a lot of the reason why they moved the capital from Toronto to Ottawa, because we figured it was harder to get to. So, hello, Dave Rutherford coming in to say hi, Emma, and happy Canada Day. Bon fête du Canada. So, the very first project that we're going to kind of get into a little bit in depth is the British Home Children's Project. And this is one of my projects, and it is a project specific to me and to my family, because we have an aunt, a great aunt, who was a British home child. A lot of people don't know about the British Home Children. The British Home Children were a part of a group of orphanages, the main one being the Bernardo Orphanage in Britain. There were a lot of kids who were orphaned and needed places to live, and the orphanages were being overburdened by all these kids. And so this Bernardo fellow came up with his great idea to send all of these kids overseas and let them be indentured servants to families. And technically the indentured servant part wasn't really talked about very much. Most of the families thought that their kids were going to be going to live with loving families and raised as a part of that loving family, which happened rarely, but it did happen. So the British Home Children looks to have and add and improve profiles of all identified British home children of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and South Africa. Project members, of course, take on the responsibility for the profiles, and family groups, and work on merging duplicates, cleaning up profiles, adding sources, removing incorrect information, and offering research assistance as needed. So the Canada portion of this project is already started and going. I think that we've had some Australian home children added as well. For my great aunt that was a British home child, she came and she worked for a family Her brother was sent to a family in New Brunswick. She ended up in Ontario and ended up in falling in love with and marrying one of our Bill Curran, his family. So there's lots of tasks going on with these projects, the specific projects. And you can see the specific Canadian British Home Children Project, which is easy to get to right off the Canadian History Project. Do any of our chatters know anything about the British Home Children? You ever heard about that?
Well, I think Robin would, since she's one of the coordinators on there.
Hello, Robin. You know, these people in the chat, you know what? We're probably a few seconds ahead of where they are, if you think about that, Emma. So we'll give her a chance to chime in. So that's the British Home Children's Project. How many?
Oh, there she goes.
There she goes. She's here. So yes, Robin knows about the New Zealand and the Australian projects. We were just saying, were you aware? Anybody in the chat aware? And Emma remembered that you were a coordinator, and I should remember that as well, since I lead the project.
Right? I just read it as you scrolled through.
Yeah, aren't you good? Yeah, and there were a lot of abuses. There was situations where the children were not treated well, and it didn't work out well. But for our family, it worked out well because we got this really strong person who entered our family. And Dave Rutherford has a couple of home children in his family as well. Dave, have you added your profiles to the project yet? Oh, and Michelle Wilkes also points out that many of the children weren't orphaned. They were actually dropped off at these orphanages by the families. I think I mentioned that when we first started. Dropped off at these orphanages because they just couldn't feed them. And so they were hoping for a better life. And they went off and lived with people, and some had good lives, but most did not. Back to the Canadian Project. And there's Robin on the list. You're so good. Let's see. The Empress of Ireland is a project that Guy Castantino started. And looks like he's lost his image there. And the RMS Empress of Ireland was an ocean liner that sank in the St. Lawrence River on May the 29th, 1914. It is the largest peacetime maritime accident in Canadian history and is sometimes called Canada's Titanic. And if you can imagine, it happened in the St. Lawrence River. And if you think of a river, you wouldn't think huge, but the St. Lawrence is actually a seaway. It actually is a huge piece of water, body of water that goes out to the Atlantic. And this project covers, I see Danielle Laird is one, Gaston Tardif, Joseph Saint-Denis. There are all sorts of really interesting information. They've got stuff added, the passengers first class, the passengers from second class. And it's a lot like the Titanic project, but it is the Empress of Ireland. And that was a horrible event. And we'll go back. Here, I think that, Emma, you should take the next one.
What is that? The Quebec? Oh, the Fille de Roi?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just learned about the Fille de Roi this week, so I don't know anything about it yet.
Oh, well, the Fille de Roi is a project regarding the 750 or so French women who immigrated to New France, Canada, between 1663 and 1673 as the king's daughters, wards of France, who became the wives of the men settling New France. So basically, if you've heard the story about the American West, these cowboys or these pioneers out west, there were lots and lots and lots of men. It was the same thing with New France. Lots and lots and lots of men came to New France to work in the timber industries. Timber was a huge deal. And they were taking these trees and turning them into masts for ships. And all of these men were in New France doing all this work, and there were literally no women, none. So the idea was that they would round up these women and send them over so that these men could actually settle the land rather than just work the land. So there are 750 women, just about, and they were all sent over to become the wives of these men. Let's see, and Robin says she has one fille de roi in her ancestors as well. And Michelle Wilkes says it sounds like Jamestown. But Jamestown is different. Jamestown, they actually came over with women for Jamestown. What was it, the second? They actually, families came over and settled Jamestown after the first wave came over, the military wave came over for Jamestown. It's supposed to be a good thing to have the fille de roi in your ancestry, kind of like an Australian convict. That's interesting. Oh, it's not Robin's ancestry, it's her husband's. But it's a good thing to have it in your family, Robin. So there's lots of information on the project page about how to join and some of the people who are working on it. And they have one of the best templates out there. I love the image of the template. Mm-hmm. And you can work on adding resources and information. I asked people, that's interesting. Jude just posted that he's read somewhere that they paid bounties for each child they produced in early Canada, which I haven't heard that. I'm reading a book about not the fille de roi, but the fille de roi. So I asked the question in the chat or earlier is, how many Mounties does it take to carry the Grey Cup? Can anybody answer that for me? The first answer gets something.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
You don't know what the Grey Cup is?
No.
Oh, my word. The Grey Cup is the Canadian version of the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
And the big trophy is actually a big cup, like the big, it's football. It's Canadian football. It's just like the NFL, except it's Canadian football.
See, there's other people in the chat who don't know what it is either. So
yeah, I see that. I'm telling them. It's the CFL. So these guys get together and have a big Super Bowl every year. And during that Super Bowl, there's this big trophy that's carried in by these Mounties. And my question was, how many Mounties does it take to carry? How many Mounties does it take to carry the Grey Cup? 2. It takes 2. It's so big. And
I thought it was a trick question.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was a good question. The other question is, who won the Grey Cup this year? All the Canadians in the country right now are out celebrating Canada Day. They are not in here watching this live cast. The Red Blacks, the Ottawa Red Blacks won the Grey Cup last year. Hoo-hoo!
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it was good. Okay, so back to the projects. I just gave you a break from that.
Don't know, don't care is what Robin said.
So, the First Peoples of Canada is also one of the projects that I lead, and that is a project that encompasses genealogies and free space pages for the history of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And again, it's a really fascinating project, and the native art here is just so pretty that it's cool, the medallion there for it. If you want to be a part of that project, you can join the Canadian History Project or the First Peoples Project. The First Peoples Project is the umbrella project for all First Peoples of the world, all of them, everywhere. And we've got some great work going on in the project with people. And It's interesting. So the First Peoples Project. And we have the Gros Île, Quebec, which was a quarantine station on an island, if I remember correct, in the St. Lawrence River. And the quarantine station operated from 1832 to 1937. And I've forgotten what they were quarantining people from. And Maria Maxwell is the current project leader. I want to say it was cholera. I don't remember. Anyway, so this is a great project that discusses what happened at that quarantine station and what happened with those people. Let's look and see if we can get a little bit more information on the quarantine. It doesn't really say yet. Anyway, they were quarantined. I think it was cholera that was going. It was the issue. There's also another project on the go, more projects. The Manitoba Project, which is another provincial project led by Leanne Lavoie. The New Brunswick Project is run by Bob Jewett. The Nova Scotia Project is run by Aaron Breen. The Ontario Project is led by myself. And the Quebecois Project is led by Guy Constantino. And again, the Empire Loyalists. Now, we had some questions. Did I go over the Empire Loyalists yet? No. So the Empire Loyalists, the United Empire Loyalist Project, there's a bit of confusion here recently in G2G about the definition of an Empire Loyalist. And somebody had set up a project page for American Empire Loyalists. Now, an American Loyalist was somebody who supported the British either militarily or by supplies or otherwise, were spies like Emma's family. And they ended up staying in the U.S. after the war was over. And a United Empire Loyalist is someone who helped the British either by working for the army, being in the military itself, supplying, or being a spy, who fled or ran with the British out of the United States when they were pushed out. I think a lot of people came from New York when New York fell. And they came to Canada. They lived in Canada. They were given land by the Canadian government to settle, but they were actually moved into Canada into several refugee camps and lived in these refugee camps over a winter before they started dispersing them deeper into Canada. So there was lots of hardship and lots of pain that they endured. And as a thank you to these people, the Canadian government and the British government conferred upon these people and all of their ancestors, or their descendants, sorry, the royal title of UEL, which is United Empire Loyalists, and it is the only royal honorarium in Canada. There are no lords or barons here. There are only UEL, and so if you see the UEL suffix after a name, you know that they are one of the people who is a descendant of a United Empire Loyalist who came to Canada to live. So that project is ongoing, and there's a lot of great information in it as well for any of your family who came to Canada. And you can see it's a very active project. We have lots of people involved and templates and information. And there's our cool little project.
I'm going to have to go see if my, I have several people in my family who came to America, but then wanted to stay loyal to Britain, and so ended up in Canada and then spying. I need to see if they were UEL.
The spies, the dastardly spies that you had?
Yes.
What were can you think of a name of one of your ancestors that was
one was Marr, M-A-R-R.
Yeah. Have you checked the UEL list?
Oh, is there a list somewhere?
Yeah, there is.
Where would that be found?
If you go to the project page, let's see. there is a link way down the page. Here we go. And the link goes to the United Empire Loyalist Project. Let's look real quick. Give me the spelling. Wait. No, this is the definition of a loyalist. Here we go. Is that it? Here we go. Nope. Just too much going on. There is a link to, here it is. The easy one. So you can check to see if you have a loyalist by checking the directory. So what was it? M-O?
M-A-R-R.
M-A-R-R.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, that family, a couple of them almost got hung by the U.S., but they managed to escape back to Canada. I don't see anybody.
Nope. Not yet. But if the family, it's just like the Daughters of the American Revolution or SAR, you have to prove your ancestors' part in the Revolutionary War on the British side, and if you have any documentation for that, then you can apply to be a UEL. I don't know what the complete process is for that, but then you'll get added to the directory.
Ooh, cool.
And are there any alternate spellings for that name?
Shouldn't be. I mean, it's M-U-I-R. It was the original Scottish spelling, I believe.
There's Muirhead.
No.
No, I don't see a Muir. So there is a listing for the United Empire Loyalists. I don't know that there is a listing for the American Loyalist. I had an American Loyalist. Great, Dr. Thomas Hunt of Bedford County, Virginia, who was imprisoned during the Revolutionary War. And the only way he could get out of prison was to sign an oath. So he was allowed to stay in the United States and keep his lands and his possessions. And his sons also, quite a few of Dr. Thomas Hunt's sons fought on the American side of the Revolution. So there was a family that was divided. As well. So that was the United Empire Loyalist Project. We'll go back to the Canadian list. And this is where we need to go to a full list of other projects. So we didn't have the Acadians Project on that list. So there is an Acadians Project.
It's not listed under Canadian?
I didn't see that.
I think it's listed by itself under the project list.
Might be. Let's get to the Acadian Project. Here we go, the Acadians Project. Emma, once again, tell us the difference between an Acadian and a Quebecois.
So the Acadians lived in Acadia, which would be Nova Scotia, correct?
That's correct.
And the Quebecois lived in Quebec.
That is correct.
And origins are, of course, in France for both of them.
That is correct. And this was a lot of the plantation systems of the British and the French trying to get a foothold in the new colony, especially because of the rich timber resources in Acadia or in Quebec. And leaders for this project are Roland Arsenault and Jacqueline Giraud. And I don't even know if she pronounces her name with a French accent, but I just tried. I apologize for that, Jacqueline. And so there's a lot of going on in this project as well. They've got a great to-do list with specific information. These people deal with the DIT names, which is completely beyond my understanding.
We work with that in Quebec a lot.
Yeah, DIT names are. Do you understand the DIT names, Emma?
Names, yes.
Explain DIT names for us, please.
So a D name is because there were so many families with the same surname, and everybody was related to everybody. And so they took on these D names as kind of a addition to their name to separate themselves from other families with the same surname. Does that make sense?
Yes. And you can see on the profile, I think we talked to one of the Acadian leaders who's a leader emeritus, Annette Cormier, during the live cast from the OGS conference a couple weeks ago. And she was talking about how the progress was going. And this is a really active project for the members. And you can see that there are a lot of people working on a lot of profiles. You could spend your whole day just scrolling through that list. So that it's a fascinating project. And what we're going to do is later on, we're going to come back and we're going to actually talk to the leaders of these projects in future live casts. But today we just wanted, for the Canadian 150th birthday, we wanted to be able to share this information. So we'll go back to the categories list and just really quickly check for the Chronicles of New France. This is a little project that is about the census, 19 families of the 1671 census. This is about the Acadiana of Port Royal and the Bay of Fundy. It's a really interesting collaborating to produce a concise chronology of contemporary events and personalities, revealing the historical context that influenced the early Canadian settlers' lives. So this is a free space project, but it is a project nonetheless, and I thought it looked really interesting too. And the affiliated projects, the Métis and the Southern Colonies, believe it or not, is also a part of that project, because portions of the of Canada were considered a part of Louisiana, and when Louisiana was purchased by the U.S., all of this area was purchased by the U.S., was a part of America for a short time. If you hear the Americans say it, we'll see what the Canadians think about that. You guys chime in. Markham Birdseat Settlers Project. So there's lots of little projects that are going on as well. And this is the 64 German families who founded Markham, Ontario. That's a cute, fun little project. The guy, what a great pencil sketch. And I scratched my head over this project. Military musicians. Now, I'm pretty sure that this is an American drum.
They may be under the wrong project heading. It should be under military and war.
It should be under military and war.
I think
I was like, military musicians. Glenn, is Glenn Miller in this list? I don't know. Anyway, so that one ended up in the, I think that one is, it's under British projects, Canadian projects, military and war project. So if there was a Canadian military project, it would be underneath it instead. And I don't believe there is a Canadian military project, which maybe there should be. So we also have the Norman Gosselin project. And it really doesn't have anything much in here without much of a description. So Norman Gosselin project, Andre Downs is working on that. Andre, if you are wanting more people to join the project, you get some description in there, and I'm sure that people will jump in to help. And then, of course, there is that little argument that Britain and the United States had a couple of years ago, the War of 1812, which fueled a bit of conversation. I want to read real quickly here that there was a conversation going on between Emma and some of the people in the chat. Do you want to talk about what you guys were talking about, Emma?
Oh, we were just bantering
about
who really won the War of 1812.
Yeah. Did you guys figure that out between you and the Canadian?
No, we're both right, I'm sure.
So,
I'm a good diplomat.
My kids are really funny. When they were studying the 1812 war in school, they would come home and say, you know, we won that to me all the time, knowing that I was a Markham. All right. So the Canadian projects, there are quite a few of them, and we're going to come back and take on some of these individually on their own live cast later. We just thought we would touch on them for today because
oh, you didn't talk about Quebecois.
Well, the Quebecois is a provincial project.
Oh.
And I was just saying, like, man, I went over the British Columbia one because it was the first one in the list. Do you want to go over the Quebecois? You're more than welcome to.
That's okay. I think it's very important because I have so much Quebecois in my family, and everybody who is Quebecois is related to each other. Talk about endogamy, lots and lots of that going on. And the great thing about the Quebecois is because the majority of them were French Catholic,
yes,
the records are endless. So there's
and they just released the Drouin records.
Yeah.
Is there a correct way to pronounce that, Emma?
Oh,
is it Drouin?
Drouin.
Yes, I knew there was a correct way to say it.
Yes, those records are extensive. As a matter of fact, I have to take breaks working on this line of my family because the records are so extensive. There's just too much.
Wouldn't I love to be able to say that? Oh yeah, there's too many records on my Galdens.
Well, and they're all in French, so, and not necessarily indexed, so it takes a little time to find the correct one, and then you have to read the bad handwriting in French. So you have to work for it a little bit.
Well, unfortunately for you, that's not as hard because you are a French speaker.
Oui.
Oui. But here it is. Here is the project page.
And Danielle Liard, I think it's Liard because it's spelled Liard.
Okay.
Has recently taken the project on.
Yeah, she's the project coordinator. I see that.
Yeah, she's one of my cousins, and she's working to do a lot of rewriting of instructions and getting things going.
And if I'm not mistaken, she is watching today. I tried to drag her in today to be a part of our little discussion, and she is hardware challenged currently. But we're going to correct that because we're going to have a live cast about the Quebecois project, and she is going to come in and talk to us.
Oh, that'd be great.
And I can see her shaking her head no back there behind the camera, but it's true. She is.
Yes, she must. She's so knowledgeable.
She is very knowledgeable. So, and here's the Drouin collection that we were talking about, but there is tons and tons of information. And there's also tons and tons of information about the United Empire Loyalists. The early people in Canada were really good about keeping records and all of that. So that is basically all of the Quebec. That is basically all of the Canadian projects in a nutshell. We're going to come back later and, like I said, do another live cast. I do want to really quickly do some rundown for us, sliding away from the Canadian stuff. WikiTree's numbers. We haven't run through the numbers lately. There are 14,491,456 profiles being edited by 402 volunteer genealogists from all over the world, which is just great. We are growing in leaps and bounds just every day. And it's a steady, and I say leaps and bounds, but it's a steady growth. It really is. It's nice. The profile of the week this week is Sir George Herbert. If he was Canadian, I would say Hebert. He's the Earl of Carnarvon, the financial backer for the excavation of King Tut's tomb. And does anyone else know the reason that he is kind of famous in today's day? Does anybody have any idea? Any clue?
No idea.
His castle, his manor house, is where they filmed Downton Abbey.
Oh, really?
Yes. Lord Carnarvon's. He was one of the people who died from the supposed curse of Tutankhamun. Isn't that interesting? Great picture of the week this week of Joe McClory in Vietnam. And Campbell Braddock is one of my favorite WikiTreeers. He's a teenager and he's done 12,000 WikiTree contributions and works on an extensive Braddock name study. How cool it is to have somebody like Campbell as our member of the week this week.
Awesome.
Really cool. And the challenge of the week. At the OGS conference, Emma and I were going to have a conversation about all of the challenges that we've got coming up on WikiTree. And this one, summer challenges cleanup.
That's the database.
Yeah, the database errors.
The new data doctors challenges that just started a couple weeks ago.
And do you want to tell us about Choose a Vacation, Summer Vacation?
So we now have a weekly challenge, and this week it was choose your vacation spot, and we've been cleaning errors from that. It's not listed there, but on another page it had Haiti, so I did Haiti since I've been.
What about Myrtle Beach?
It's not listed.
No.
We had to choose from, I wanted Scotland, but it's not listed. So we had to choose from what Alice pulled for us. So I've been spending time in Paris since I finished with Haiti.
So, well, that's good because you're French, so that works.
Yeah, Isabelle Rassino is also working on Paris, so because there's a lot of errors there. So we've been cleaning quite a few. I mean, we're already up to almost 3,000 errors for this week on this challenge as a whole group.
The database doctors, that is such a fun project. If you're the type of person who likes to get into numbers and just disappear, I'll introduce you to Emma because Emma likes to do that.
Yes.
She likes to get into the database era stuff and just disappear for a few days.
It is my nighttime when I need to chill for the day. That's what I do.
All those numbers running through your head. So when you go to bed, do you sleep and dream about the database errors?
You know, I do sometimes about different things on WikiTree.
So the question of the week this week is, have you found any ancestors who participated in the American Revolution? Now, I know the theme today is all things Canada but we'll let the American Revolution sneak in because I am an American and I will be celebrating the 4th of July coming up in just a couple of 3 days, I believe. So yes, I have ancestors who participated in the revolution. I have ancestors who participated in the revolution on both sides.
So do I.
So yeah, and I wonder how many people out there in the world who have people who participated. There are a lot of French Huguenots, which were some of the persecuted Protestants from France who left France, who joined the revolution against the British as well. So there were a lot of different people. So the best one on here was Doug Lockwood. And you notice down here at the bottom, do you see that? Oh, Canada. Revolution. But he has a great interesting thing about Genège van Rippen Tours. There's my Scandinavian pronunciation. But that's a fun story if you want to read it, the question of the week. And that's about it for stuff. I want to tell you people that coming up on next week, we had a live cast scheduled. that because it is the time of year it is, we had people, we've had to cancel that one because there weren't enough people actually available to do it. So we are scrounging around to try and find another group of people to come in and do the live cast next week. We will be here either way, and you'll hear Emma and I drone on about something, or we'll have some really interesting people to interview. Coming up on the 15th, I believe Eowyn Langoff, our favorite forest elf, will be in working with you, or talking to you and talking with other people about, let me pull that list up. On the 15th, she's going to be doing the Adoption Angels Project, which is a really important project that Emma and I are both involved in. I am a lot less involved in it, but Emma is very much involved in the Adoption Angels Project. So I'm sure Emma is going to be excited about doing that one with Eowyn on the 15th. Then on the 22nd, Eowyn is going to host a live cast all about WikiTree challenges. So she'll be talking about all the challenges that we have going on, because there's so many going on, it's kind of hard to keep track. So make sure that you're back and you enjoy those too. Next week is the surprise live cast.
Surprise!
Surprise! So tune in next week to find out about that. Let's see. I even have, if I can get to it without getting lost, I have a tip of the day, and it's all about collaboration. Collaborating on family trees is the only way to do things. And WikiTree is the collaborative model for that. So let's see. I can't find anything that I'm looking for. So that's it for us today. Emma, do you have anything else to add? Do we have any chat questions?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll be into.
No. Oh, let's see. So Jude says that they have an ancestor who was a loyalist and an ancestor who was a revolutionary participant. I have so many Revolutionary War veterans, and then I have one official UEL, Mechamoil, and then I have one official American loyalist, and that is Dr. Thomas Hunt. So yeah, I have those. So that's going to wrap it up for us today, and we hope you enjoyed that. Today was Bonne Fête du Canada. So I got to go and get a cold one and go watch the fireworks later. So you guys have fun. I'll have fun here in Canada, and we will see you again very soon. Sooner than soon. It'll be next Saturday with the surprise one. So you guys have a good week.